Everybody's talking about the Unreal Engine 5 and the amazing graphics that the games made with it are gonna have. Of course, it's very easy to say that the evolution is clear. After all, the evolution from one engine to the other is right in front of our eyes. Hello, I'm Lucas Hyland, and today we're gonna talk about how the Unreal Engine 5 will impact the game industry, and also why it's a way bigger deal than most people are thinking. We are always seeing new things on the internet showing the difference between two technologies, like for example the RTX on and RTX off that we've seen a few memes in the past few years. But these types of comparisons are not even close to be something new. These comparisons were always there, but normally it had to do with the jump the gaming console generations had between each other, like comparing the graphics from the Xbox One to the Xbox Series X, for example. But if we stop to think, we can already reach ultra-realistic levels in computer-generated imagery, or CGI, for a few years now, and can reach 100% realism in lots of movies and TV shows. So why don't we see this kind of realism in games already? Well, oversimplifying this whole thing, it's basically because in movies and TV shows they process every frame before exporting the file to broadcast them, while in video games every single frame is processed or rendered in real time. This is what FPS means, first person shoot. Frames per second. It's how many frames per second your computer or console can process. On movies and TV shows, sometimes it can take 30 to 50 hours to render a single frame of an animation. And entire movies being rendered in some of the biggest and most powerful supercomputers in the world, like Pixar's, can take 2 years to render, which was the case of Monsters University, for example. And in games, the developers need to reduce the realism and a few of the details to reach the playable level of 30-ish FPS or more. So in other words, we could play 100% realistic games today, but it would require lots of patience because in a standard computer like I have right there and you have in your home, it would run probably in 30 frames per month. The Unreal Engine 5 is a great step to the gaming world because it optimizes the performance of games to an unbelievable level. It's unreal. In between many other changes from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, there are 3 main updates that revolutionizes everything we know. There are basically 3 new optimization methods. The first one is Nanite, such a weird name. It allows the developers to use 3D objects with an insane amount of polygons. For those who don't know, every 3D object in a computer or in a game, movie and so on are composed by dozens, thousands, millions, or billions of polygons that put together shape the objects we see in games and movies. And normally, if well optimized and well created, the more polygons, the more details the object will have. So basically with Unreal Engine 5 and Nanite, developers will be able to use way more detailed objects without compromising the performance, even without upgrading your GPU, for example. Although it's not something magical that simply ignores the polygon count and will allow developers to use infinite detail in their games. But the amount of detail they will be able to use consuming less resources is incredible, as you can see in these demonstrations. The second impressive feature is called Lumen, that allows more realistic lighting with more reflections and light bouncing, but with a new optimization system that allows it to be done consuming way less of our hardware. And again, it's not something magical that will allow you to use your 10-year-old GeForce GTX 690 to run 4K RTX games, but it will allow the ones that support the technology run better lights even better. And if you've been living under a rock for the past few years, RTX is a technology that allows the computers to render much more realistic lighting by using ray tracing, which I won't enter in much detail because I also don't know how to, but they are basically bouncing rays of light that come out of your camera and bounce in every object that you are able to see and create a much more realistic light. But it's also much heavier on the computer to process. So now you know what the RTX means in the end of the names of the GPUs. And the third big improvement in performance is world partition, that makes it easier to process large open worlds. Alright, this obviously looks nice, but I said that's not only about graphics, so what's the point of this video? It's what's gonna happen behind the scenes in the gaming industry because of the new version of Unreal Engine that excites me the most. In the past, games used to be developed by teams of 10 to 50 people, and this already would be considered a pretty big team. I'm talking about 20 to 30 years in the past. But now, these numbers are considered an indie team, in most cases, of course. But the more the video games evolved, the more people it required to make big games. And now it's basically normal to see projects with between 200 to 600 people. And this adds a new barrier to the development of a game. I'm fine. And I'm talking about a lot of money. One of the biggest problems in the video game industry nowadays is that probably the best and most creative projects will never leave the pitch meeting, because the big investors are not willing to take the risk of investing big amounts of money in innovative projects. Because with every innovation there is a big risk of failure. This is why in the past decade the amount of innovative games being released decreased so much. We see more and more games that have many similarities with other projects that already proved their concepts to be a financial success. And this is where I feel the Unreal Engine 5 will make the biggest impact in the game industry. Talking about making the biggest impact, you could make the biggest impact in my channel right now by leaving this video a thumbs up. I dare you. Now how you're gonna run from this? Did you do it? Did you? Yeah? Please? Okay. So if you did, you can continue with the video. There are 5 points that I believe to be the biggest changes due to the Unreal Engine 5. First one, the big developers won't need to invest so much money in people to optimize the graphics. And they will also need to spend way less time in model, environment, and lighting optimization. So they will be able to take the investment they would spend in optimization, a part of it at least, and put on what really matters. The gameplay, the story, the mechanics, the lore, the creative part. What makes a good game a good game. More creativity and innovation, less technicalities, and focus on beating the other developers for the most realistic games. Unless the developers choose not to reinvest the money they would spend in optimization and just keep the damn money. Which takes me to my second point. 2. If the big developers don't need to invest so much in extra people to optimize the games, then the cost of the games will go down, which means investors may be a little easier to convince for more innovative and risky projects. 3. The time it takes to develop games will go down. If you ever 3D sculpted anything, you know that the most time-consuming and also boring part of the process of sculpting and also modeling is to optimize the 3D model to make it run smoother. Well, with Unreal Engine 5, it seems to be a smaller problem too, so probably we can see more games per year. Number 4, the games will simply be better, because after a few years with an enormous amount of games with ultra-realistic graphics, including indies, well, realism will stop to be a selling point. The devs will need to focus in the world they create, in the fun part, in the gameplay, because realism in the future will be as important to stand out as your appendix. Number 5, smaller teams will be able to create bigger projects, because with less people required in the optimization process, this will be a smaller wall too. I believe these 5 points are more than enough to make a huge difference in the gaming industry. I predict we are about to see one of the best generations of games in the future 5 to 10 years. Alright, but Unreal Engine is not the only popular game engine that is out there. What about Unity, for example? The market of game engines is growing, and it's currently a field with many competitors, which is not only healthy for the industry, but also the reason why innovative things like the Unreal Engine 5 happen. So I don't believe it will take very long to the other engines in the market, for example Unity, to answer to this new update. The Unreal Engine 5 was released in April 2022, and as the standard development time of a game is usually between 4 to 6 years, even though a few games developed in Unreal Engine 5 will be released before. I mean, there are already a few Unreal Engine 5 games published, for example Fortnite, but most of these games probably, and some for sure, started with Unreal Engine 4 or before and were updated to the Unreal Engine 5. So even though we will see some games being released before 2026, I only expect to see its real potential ahead in the future. Because although when they update the engine they were using improves the game in a technical way, I believe the best way to see the full potential of a game engine, we need to see games that were completely developed in this new technology. Let's see what's gonna happen in the game industry because of the Unreal Engine 5, and let's hope that's much more than just graphics. I'm Lucas Highland. This was the impact that the Unreal Engine 5 will have in the game industry. thank you for watching. The thank you for watching is not a part of the title. I don't think I had to mention that, but I will leave this on the video. If you like this video and if you agree with my theory, please leave this video a thumbs up. It helps me a lot. If you have nothing better to do, watch these other videos that YouTube is suggesting you. And if you do have something better to do, do it and then come back and watch these other videos that YouTube is suggesting you. Thank you again and see you in the next video.